You're not coming. You never fit in anyway. That was the entire text. No explanation. No apology. Just 11 words from my sister-in-law. Sent at 1:47 on a Tuesday night, 2 days before the family trip to Sedona that I had paid for in full. I stared at my phone screen until the brightness dimmed and the room went dark around me. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat on the edge of my bed and thought about the $4.200 I had put on my credit card 3 weeks earlier, the rental house deposit, the activity packages, the grocery pre-order for the whole group. I thought about how I had spent a Sunday afternoon comparing trails so my brother's kids would have something fun to do each morning. I thought about how my sister-in-law, Renee, had texted me a smiley face when I sent her the confirmation details, and then I set my phone face down on the nightstand and told myself I would deal with it in the morning. I didn't sleep. My name is Claire. I'm 31 years old. I work as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company in Phoenix. And for the past 4 years, I have been the person my family called when something needed to get done or paid for. It didn't start that way. It never does. When my brother Marcus married Renee 6 years ago, I was happy for them. Genuinely. Marcus had gone through a rough stretch in his mid-20s job losses, a bad apartment situation, a period where he was borrowing money from our parents just to cover groceries. When he met Renee and seemed to stabilize, our whole family exhaled. She was organized, confident, good at taking charge. At the time, those seemed like good things. The first time I covered something for them, it felt natural. Marcus had just changed jobs, and the timing was off. Their car registration was due. They were short, a few $100s. And I had just gotten a small bonus at work. I told him not to worry about it. He said he'd pay me back by the end of the month. He didn't. But I didn't bring it up. Because it felt petty to make a thing out of $240 when my brother was clearly still getting on his feet. The second time, it was their security deposit when they moved apartments. I told myself it was a loan. I kept a note in my phone with the amount and the date. By year 3 of their marriage, I had a whole page of notes. Renee had figured something out about me before I figured it out about myself. She understood that I had a deep, almost compulsive need to keep the peace, especially with family. She understood that if she asked me directly, I would usually say yes, and that if she made me feel like saying no would damage something, I would say yes, even faster. She was precise about it. She never asked in front of other people in a way that felt like pressure. She always made it sound like a temporary situation, a minor inconvenience, something a good sister-in-law would just absorb without making it a whole thing. What I didn't know, not yet, was that while I was absorbing the minor inconveniences, she was building something much larger behind my back. The Sedona trip was my idea. I had suggested it at a family dinner in January, a way to celebrate my parents' 35th anniversary in April. My mom had always wanted to see the Red Rocks. My dad had mentioned Sedona once, years ago, and I had filed it away the way I filed most things. People I loved said they wanted. I started planning in February. I found a 6-bedroom house rental outside the main area. Close enough to hike, but far enough to feel private. I budgeted for everyone, my parents, Marcus and Renee, their 2 kids, and me. I didn't ask anyone to contribute. I told myself it was a gift. In hindsight, I think part of me already knew that if I asked, the conversation would get complicated. And I didn't want anything to complicate my mom's anniversary trip. I paid the full deposit in March. I booked the hiking permits, the Jeep tour, the sunset dinner reservation. I drove to Costco on a Saturday morning and put together a pre-order for the house groceries so nobody would have to shop when they arrived tired from travel. I texted Renee all the details because she liked to be informed, and she responded with enthusiasm, questions about the room arrangements, whether the house had a good kitchen, whether there was a pool. There was a pool. I had specifically looked for one because her kids loved to swim. You never fit in anyway. I lay in bed that night and replayed every interaction I could remember, looking for the version of events where that sentence made sense. I couldn't find it. What I found instead, as I traced back through months of small moments, I was a pattern I hadn't let myself name before, the way Renee would redirect family conversations so that my contributions were framed as her coordination. The Christmas where I had ordered, wrapped, and shipped gifts for both sides of their family because she told me she was overwhelmed. And then at dinner, she accepted thanks for thoughtful gifts without correcting anyone. The time my mom called to say what a good job Renee had done planning Marcus's birthday dinner, a dinner I had researched, reserved, and confirmed, while Renee forwarded my emails to my mother under her own name, I had seen all of it. I had filed it away under things I didn't want to make into a conflict. At doi? M. I got up and opened my laptop. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just needed to do something with my hands and my mind. And what I started doing was looking at the finances, my credit card statements, the notes in my phone, the Venmo history between me and Marcus. I had never laid it all out in one place before. I think I had been afraid of what it would look like. It looked like a lot. In 4 years, I had covered or contributed to 2 security deposits, 1 car repair, 6 months of Marcus and Renee's gym membership that they had put on my account temporarily, a portion of their kids' school supply cost 2 years in a row, a weekend trip to San Diego that was supposed to be a joint trip, but became theirs when I had to work last minute, and they went anyway on the reservations I had made. 3 family dinners I had hosted and fully catered. And now the Sedona trip, added together, with the Sedona costs. It was close to $19,000 over 4 years. I sat with that number for a long time. Then I opened a separate tab and looked at my own savings account. I thought about the raise I had gotten 18 months ago and how little of it I had actually kept. I thought about the vacation I had told myself I would take once things settled down and kept postponing. I thought about the apartment upgrade I had looked at twice and talked myself out of because the timing felt indulgent. Something shifted in my chest. Not anger. Exactly. Something quieter and more permanent. I did not confront Renee that night. I did not text back. I closed my laptop and went back to bed and made a decision that felt surprisingly calm, given how much my hands were shaking. I was going to find out exactly what was happening before I did anything at all. I started with the gym membership because it was the easiest thread to pull. I called the gym the next morning and asked for a full account summary. The customer service rep was helpful. She told me that the account was still active, all 3 memberships, and that automatic billing had been running on my card for 14 months. Not 6. I asked her when I had been listed as the billing contact. She gave me a date. I wrote it down. Then I called my bank. I had been meaning to set up account alerts for a while. I did it that morning. And while I was on the phone, I asked the representative to walk me through any linked accounts or automatic transfers that had been set up without a recent notification to me. She found 2. One was the gym. The other was a subscription service I didn't recognize. I asked her to read me the name of the subscription. It was a meal kit delivery service. Registered to my card. Billed monthly for 17 months. Delivering to an address in Scottsdale. Marcus and Renee lived in Scottsdale. I put the phone down carefully and looked out my kitchen window for a moment. Then I picked it back up and started making more calls. Over the next 8 days, I documented everything with the focus of someone who had spent years managing logistics projects and understood exactly how to build a paper trail. I contacted every service provider, every subscription, every vendor I could find any connection to. I pulled my full credit history for the first time in 2 years. I reviewed every automatic payment on every account. What I found was not dramatic in the way fraud looks in movies. It was quiet and incremental, the kind of thing that works precisely because it doesn't trigger alarms all at once. Small recurring charges. Accounts linked without explicit permission. One store credit card that I had no memory of opening. Tied to an email address that was a slight variation of mine, one extra letter. Easy to miss with a billing address in Scottsdale and a purchase history going back 19 months. I printed everything and put it in a folder. I did not tell Marcus. I did not tell my parents. I called the one person I trusted to help me think clearly, my friend Dana, who had worked in financial compliance before moving into consulting and who had heard me make excuses for my family for years with a patience that I had never fully appreciated. We sat at her kitchen table for 3 hours. She went through my folder, page by page. She didn't say I told you so, though she had every right to. She helped me understand which items were civil matters and which ones crossed into potential fraud. She helped me draft a letter to the credit card company about the account I hadn't opened. She helped me understand what freezing my credit would do and how to do it quickly. When we were done, she made coffee and sat across from me and said, "What do you want to happen?" I thought about it for a long time. "I want my parents to have their anniversary trip," I said finally. "And I want this to be over." She nodded. "Those two things aren't necessarily compatible with keeping the peace." "I know," I said. "I think I'm done keeping the peace." I called my parents that evening. I told them that I needed to share some things with them before Sedona, and that it was important they hear it from me directly. My mom's voice went very quiet, in the way it does when she knows something is serious. I asked if I could come over the next day. I brought the folder. My parents are practical people. My dad spent 30 years in insurance, and my mom taught middle school math. They do not panic easily, and they do not fall apart in a crisis. But watching my mother go through that folder, watching her face as she recognized the pattern, as she added up the years, as she got to the store, credit card was one of the harder things I have ever sat through. My dad didn't say much. He looked at the numbers, asked me 2 or 3 precise questions, and then set the folder down on the coffee table and was quiet for a while. "Did Marcus know?" my mom asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Some of it. Probably. All of it I don't know." We talked for 2 hours. By the end of it, my parents had made a decision that I had not pushed them toward, but that I understood completely. They were going to speak with Marcus privately before Sedona. The trip would still happen, but it would happen differently than planned. I won't recount that conversation between my parents and Marcus, because I wasn't there, and I only know pieces of it. What I know is that it lasted a long time, and that my mother cried, and that Marcus called me afterward and didn't say much, just that he was sorry, in a voice that sounded like someone who had been confronted with a version of himself he hadn't wanted to look at directly. Renee did not call. I had not expected her to. The trip to Sedona happened in April. As planned, my parents, Marcus, me. Renee stayed home with the kids. Nobody announced it as a consequence. Nobody made a scene. My dad simply said she had a conflict come up, and we all let that stand. My mom stood at the top of Cathedral Rock on the second morning, looking out over the valley with wind in her hair, and she was so visibly, quietly happy that I had to look away for a moment because something in my chest was too full to hold. That evening, sitting on the back porch of the rental house while my dad and Marcus played cards inside, my mom reached over and put her hand over mine. "You carried too much," she said. "For too long. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner." I didn't have a response prepared. I had spent so long managing the logistics of everything, the planning, The documentation. The careful conversations that I hadn't left room for what it would feel like when someone just said that. Thank you. Was all I managed. It felt small. But it was what I had. The credit dispute was resolved 6 weeks later in my favor. The unauthorized account was closed. I froze 2 of my cards and opened new ones with different numbers. I removed Marcus and Renee from all shared subscriptions and automatic permissions, not angrily. Not with a formal announcement. Just quietly and completely. The way you close a door when you finally admit a room has been drafty for years. Marcus and I have a relationship now that is different from what it was. Smaller. Maybe. But more honest. He asked me once, a few months later, if I thought we could get back to normal. I told him I wasn't sure what normal had ever been for us, and that I was more interested in building something real from where we actually were. He sat with that for a moment and then nodded. And I think he understood. Renee and I have not spoken since the night she sent that text. I don't carry anger about that. What I carry instead is something harder to name, a kind of clarity, I think, about what I'm willing to absorb and what I'm not. About the difference between generosity and disappearing. About how long I had confused the two. Last month, I booked a trip. Solo. 10 days in Portugal. Leaving in September. I found a small apartment rental in Lisbon with a balcony that gets morning light. Close enough to walk to the market and far enough from the tourist center to be quiet. I paid the deposit without thinking twice. And when the confirmation hit my inbox and I saw my name, just my name on the booking, I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was still tight. I screenshot the confirmation and put my phone down and made breakfast and didn't tell anyone for 3 days. Just because I wanted to keep it for myself a little while longer. Something that was mine. Fully. From the beginning. I stood in my kitchen on a Wednesday morning eating eggs and watching the light come through my window. And I thought, this is what it feels like. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just the uncomplicated, ordinary feeling of a life that belongs to you. I think I had forgotten that was an option. I don't anymore.